Welcome to Taiwan Talk. I'm Dennis Wen. Joining us today via video call is Dr. Richard Bush, the former chairman of American Institute in Taiwan and currently a non-resident senior fellow for at the Brookings Institute in Washington, D.C. Today, we will discuss Trump 2.0's policy and their potential impact on Taiwan. Hello, Richard. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Dennis. It's a great pleasure to be with you.
Richard, you are widely regarded as a specialist and expert on Taiwan affairs. So let's begin by, focusing on President Trump's stance toward Taiwan. How would you characterize of President Trump's overall attitude toward Taiwan and similar countries? Now that he's forming his new administration, what signal should we watch for regarding his Taiwan policy?
First of all, as we see, he is a fierce competitor. He wants to gain advantage over any adversary, including major rivals internationally. He seeks to do this by building power, increasing leverage, in order to gain advantage over his rivals. Moreover, when somebody he's dealing with treats him badly, doesn't show respect, he is capable of exacting revenge. Now, I would say that his approach to international relations is quite different from previous presidents going back to World War II. They believed that the best way for the United States to protect its own national interests was to integrate the United States in the world and have the United States play a leadership role. And in security terms, that meant alliances, both with European countries through NATO and Asian countries like Taiwan, and also through the forward deployment of U.S. forces. This was a revolution in American foreign policy. Trump, I think, is willing to accept that other major powers should be allowed to dominate their home region, just as the U.S. dominates Central America and the Caribbean. So Putin dominating Eurasia, that's fine. Israel and the Saudis in the Middle East, that's fine. Brazil and South America, that's okay. China in East Asia, that seems plausible. And so Trump believes that also that the system of international relations that was set up after World War II is not working to U.S. advantage. And he believes that when a country like Taiwan has a trade surplus with the United States, it's somehow Taiwan taking advantage of the United States, almost cheating. On the security side, he doesn't see why the United States should take such a responsibility for defending Japan or Korea, Taiwan, and really believes that they should be more responsible for their own security. Now, I would emphasize that it is very early days in the Trump administration. A number of senior officials have not yet been confirmed by the Senate, and the policymaking process is disorganized and confused. And in this early period, Trump dominates policy more than he may 1 month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now. So I think on a lot of issues we have to wait and see. I think in general, despite Trump's overall worldview, we shouldn't panic. Taiwan shouldn't panic. We will find out as the days go by, how Taiwan fits in uh, Trump's China-Taiwan policy set.
Yeah,
Um,
yes, indeed. Yes.
you asked about indicators, and it's a good question. Um, I think I would tick off the following. Um, First of all, are cabinet secretaries playing their traditional role in the conduct of U.S. Foreign and national security policy? Um, it seems like Secretary Rubio is sometimes surprised at the initiatives that Trump takes, apparently without consulting him. Is there the regular use of the formal interagency process, coordinating the approach of the State Department, the Pentagon, the economic agencies, so that the prerogatives of each are respected? Third, is there a clear interagency coordination of public statements, including by the president? Next, is there a consistency among the various domains of external policy, or are different agencies working against each other? And finally, what is the coordination with Congress? And what is Congress's role? Is it playing its traditional role of something of a check? Um, as I said, it's early days, but these are some of the things to watch for.
Yes, indeed. We should definitely keep our hope, even though there's still a lot of uncertainty already. President Trump was recently asked whether the U.S. would intervene in a potential Chinese military action against Taiwan. Instead of a direct response like President Biden, he emphasized his good relationship with President Xi. How should we interpret that? Apparently, it's very different, right?
Traditionally, presidents have been unwilling to make a categorical commitment about coming to Taiwan's defense for reasons that we both understand. Trump is really not out of line there. What is surprising is that he seems to signal that Taiwan will be safe as long as he has a good personal relationship with Xi Jinping. That is how to deter China. Um, Now there is some truth in that. Um, if the top leaders of these two very important countries don't get along, then it's harder to create a peaceful Taiwan Strait. But to depend only on that, I think, is a little risky. And deterrence includes a lot of other things.
Yes, indeed. It is a little bit risky or maybe concerning, especially to Taiwan people. But Taiwan has already done something to help himself. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te recently announced an increase in defense spending from 2.46% to 3% of GDP. Do you think that's sufficient? Will President Trump continue pressure or push Taiwan on military spending increase?
To be frank, I don't know. I mean, I think that this obviously is something that he is focused on so far. Um, but the thinking about the Taiwan issue may evolve, and this may not be so important. It may be that as officials in the Defense Department get in place and can explain to President Trump the complexities of the Taiwan security issue and the complexities of Taiwan society, he may not put so much emphasis on this. Um, After all, the Taiwan government has more responsibilities than just defense. It has to take care of the needs of your parents as they grow old. And there's only so much money in the budget. Also, I happen to think that defense as a share of GDP is not a very good way of measuring Taiwan's commitment to its own defense. I think percentage of the government budget is a better one. I think even better is the absolute amount. How many NT dollars are being spent on various defense things? Second, what is the defense strategy that defines how spending is done? Um, is Taiwan buying the right things with the money that the government provides it? Um, or is it essentially being spent on things that don't improve Taiwan's capability and therefore deterrence? Um, I frankly think and have written that maybe to ensure um, that Taiwan is better able to defend itself if necessary, that it is probably necessary to raise taxes, to increase revenues, so that there can be even more money to spend on defense.
Yes, indeed, Taiwan may need to do more to help himself and increase the self-defense capability. But President Trump's recent trade policy, in particular tariff, have once again escalated tensions across many countries with the U.S. He recently imposed a 25% tariff on Canadian and Mexican imports, along with additional tariffs on China. Is that part of the broader U.S.-China competition strategy, or is there any other reason he's playing or he's using the tariff card?
Well, as you know, his stated rationale for targeting these three countries is fentanyl. He wants to get these countries to do more to help the United States control the um, um, epidemic of use of these powerful drugs. Um, well, one can say, is increasing tariffs the best way to get policy changes by these countries? Or uh, do the increased tariffs create so many side consequences that it's really wasted effort? It's not the use of the right weapon or means to make progress. Uh, Perhaps diplomacy um, would work much better than a sort of scattershot approach to this issue. I think more generally, President Trump likes to use tariffs to increase his leverage and to put himself in a better position to negotiate with other leaders. This is particularly important in U.S. PRC relations because it appears that President Trump would like to work out some sort of understanding with Xi Jinping on issues in U.S. China relations. And if that is going to happen, I hope it's the right list for the United States and for Taiwan. Um, you may recall that President Trump said, "Oh, I'd like to go to China in the first 100 days." Well, that's probably connected with some sort of negotiation, and about 50 days have already elapsed, so he better get moving if he wants to fulfill that. I don't think that was a serious uh, desire, but something's going on here, and he's using tariffs to try and bring Xi to the table, but in a way that gives Trump the leverage.
But at the same time, Taiwan is a very big trade partner, important trade partners to the U.S. But Taiwan often finds itself caught between the U.S. security interests and trade restriction. The Pentagon definitely view Taiwan as a strategic partner, but trade policies sometimes harm Taiwan's economy. Do you foresee any change in this kind of contradiction under Trump's 2.0?
Frankly, that is yet to be decided. This is one of those things that should be worked out in interagency meetings where the various agencies are um, represented and where their various equities are balanced. Um, I think Donald Trump doesn't like those sorts of institutional arrangements for making decisions because they limit him, but that's another story. Um, I would also point out that President Biden, for the first time, um, was willing to pressure USTR to open up new lines of negotiations with Taiwan on issues that are far more important in 21st century commerce than market access for beef or pork. Now, I would love it if President Trump continued that. I am not sure that that will happen. I would note that the person who is the U.S. Trade Representative, Mr. Jameson Greer, was the chief of staff of Robert Lighthizer, who was USTR during the first Trump administration and worked in the Reagan administration. And his approach to Taiwan was you solve beef and pork first, and then maybe we'll talk. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope that in that Trump in his calculations about how to embed the Taiwan issue in his larger discussions with China will see a value in improving economic relations with Taiwan at the same time he tries to do whatever with China.
Yes, like you mentioned, we can hope for the best, especially when the trade restriction, if the trade restrictions on Taiwan lifted, it would definitely help Taiwan, with more confidence toward the future relationship between the Taiwan and the U.S. But at the same time, I'd like to ask you, important question to Taiwan. Taiwan's semiconductor industry is deeply tied to both the U.S. and China. Given President Trump's emphasis on economic decoupling, how should Taiwan handle U.S. export control on advanced technology?
We must accept that there is an issue here, a serious issue that does affect Taiwan in an important way, and that is that um, semiconductors have um, dual uses or triple uses. So a semiconductor that can be used for um, um, consumer product can also be used in a weapon system. And we don't want China to be able to build weapon systems that would make the United States or our friends in Asia, including Taiwan, less secure. So, we can try on a multilateral basis to restrict the flow of those kinds of chips. It's an uphill battle, but if we can slow China down, um, that's not a bad thing. Still, these export controls can create problems for Taiwan companies. And there are um, a couple of ways to reduce the negative consequences. Um, one is to engage in um, quiet but detailed conversations with officials of the Department of Commerce and maybe the Pentagon about specific kinds of semiconductors and the extent to which they are actually dual use and a security problem. And maybe in that process, some understandings so that can come out that improves the flexibility for Taiwan companies. Second, it's often the case that when broad export controls are imposed, companies that are affected through their lawyers can um, persuade the Department of Commerce to issue exceptions so that their semiconductors are not affected by the order. And that again produces flexibility. I would also say that the willingness of TSMC to invest $100 billion in the United States doesn't hurt.
Well, it is indeed a very significant issue and
Yes.
discussion in Taiwan, regarding the TSMC, whether the TSMC will become the USMC. That's a debate in Taiwan currently. Uh, so yes, your answer definitely give us some kind of explanation and also again some hope. There's another issue also concerning or very important. That's energy industry or energy security. President Trump has reversed many green energy policy from President Biden or previous president, he emphasized fossil fuel. How might this affect Taiwan's renewable energy strategy?
Well, I think Taiwan needs to base its energy policy on its own situation. Um, Except for renewables and nuclear, it is totally dependent on imported sources of energy. And that's not a good situation for an island country in with a certain security problem. Um, my own view concerning the United States is that um, we are, first of all, very fortunate that we have um, sources of relatively safe energy that we can use for ourselves or to export and earn revenue. If natural gas is handled properly, its contribution to China climate change is reduced. We have a lot of very open and sunny parts of the country, such as Texas, that are ideal for solar power, maybe wind power. So why can't we have use both traditional sources and new sources like renewables? I, I, I think we should use whatever we can, and companies should have access to a variety of sources, whatever's best for them. I think that what's going on here is that this is being treated as an ideological issue rather than an economic issue or a business issue, and may have more to do with the presidential campaign than anything else. As the Energy Department gets going and as senior officials are there, maybe a more comprehensive look will be taken towards this question.
Yes, indeed. The energy security and energy policy is definitely a hot topic to an island country like Taiwan. So another question really concerning Taiwan and a lot of debate whether, President Trump has a positive attitude toward Taiwan. So President Trump has sometimes, been viewed that he's treating Taiwan as a bargaining chip in negotiations with China. Should Taiwan be concerned about this happening again?
We cannot rule out the possibility that he might undercut the interests of small countries that are involved in larger international disputes in order to cut a deal with the big power that he's negotiating with. Um, and so it's very important, first of all, that um, the that Taiwan have friends in the administration who understand Taiwan's security situation and the need to formulate policy towards Taiwan um, on Taiwan's own merits, not just as a chip. Um, it's important that the policy process be one where the Pentagon gets its say, the State Department gets its say, and that President Trump listens carefully to what is at stake and how he negotiates. Um, I would repeat my remark that it is early days,
Mm.
and um, I suspect that the issues um, on which President Trump wants to negotiate with China bilaterally are very, very complicated. Um, and some people speculate that, the first stage would be to get Chinese fulfillment of its pledges under phase one, and then move on to phase two. Well, phase two targets the Chinese political economy and the CCP's sort of economic development model, which has implications for trade with the United States and other countries. Um, so it's not as if this is something that can be negotiated on a short trip by President Trump to Beijing. And um, so um, Taiwan should have no illusions, but it shouldn't panic.
So, in the past or over the years, Taiwan engaged broadly across the U.S. government, not just with the White House, but also with the Congress and the defense community. So, how should Taiwan engage with President Trump's administration to protect its interests?
First of all, it is important whenever possible um, to have good contacts with um, the people who work on external policy in President Trump's inner circle. Um, I think that we can expect that the people who will be appointed to policy positions in the Pentagon and the State Department will be favorably disposed to Taiwan. And assuming they are allowed to have a voice in policy, um, that is good. Um, Congress is something of a question mark now, um, particularly in the Trump administration and the Biden administration. It seemed like there was a bipartisan consensus against China and in favor of Taiwan. But something very interesting happened um, after the meeting last week, the tragic meeting, I think, between um, President Zelensky of Ukraine and um, President Trump and Vice President Vance. There was an article in the New York Times a couple of days after that noted that House Speaker Mike Johnson, who is a friend of Taiwan and who risked his speakership last year in order to get a significant military aid package to Taiwan, um, did not really respond in a negative way to how President Trump and Vice President Vance treated President Zelensky. So I think that it's all the more important Taiwan maintain and enhance its relations with its friends on Capitol Hill, um, so that they don't forget Taiwan and play the check and balancing role that the Constitution gave them.
Yes, indeed. We should keep engaging with people, policy circle in Capitol Hill. It's definitely help Taiwan, or it's important. So the final question: what specific step should Taiwan take to prepare uh, for possible change in the second President Trump's administration?
First would be to have as much understanding, um, detailed understanding about the thinking of the Trump administration, not just Donald Trump, but the different power centers in the administration about Taiwan. It should pay attention to how the U.S. government is making its policy decisions, not the content of those. Well, I mean, it has to look at the content of those decisions, but uh, um, the end result is a function of the process, right? And so it's important to understand that process. I think it is always important to build up sources of strength and support in various parts of the American system, both inside and outside the government. On the issue of self-help, there are things that Taiwan can do. Um, One that we haven't talked about, but I feel is very important, is that the Taiwan political system do a much better job in forging consensus on all kinds of policy issues, including external policy. And I think the stakes are too high uh, for um, the political system to continue to be just a battleground of domestic political interests. Taiwan can have no illusions about the situation it lives in and the unpredictability of it. I have long encouraged that politics stop at the shores of the Taiwan Strait. Finally, I would say again, it's early days. Um, Taiwan should have no illusions, but on the other hand, it's not yet time to panic.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Well, all the strategy or action that taken by Taiwan, will be strengthening if the unity happen within Taiwan. So great insight, Richard. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us today.
I'm glad to do it. Thank you for having me.